Hi there. So I want to share with you newsletter 57, which is a treatment of Alisdair. And we took Alisdair from these complete dentures to this. So it's implant supported overdentures. He had these old dentures that were at least 30 years old. He had a couple of implants in the maxilla and two in the mandible too. We made these metal-based dentures. When I first see a patient, I like to do a Zoom consultation to start off with. This just saves the patient coming in. A lot of my patients travel from quite a long distance, so it's quite nice just to see them quickly like this, and I can have a look at their dentures. The referring dentist can send me some x-ray pictures too, and I can just assess how things are. So, and I can also give them a good idea on how much things are going to cost. And if all of that sounds fine for the patient, then we can get them booked in and we can go ahead. So this is how Alisdair presented with these existing teeth. And like often with complete dentures, the lip support wasn't great. And also, he's quite heavy on the teeth. And I do find this with patients who have implants underneath. They do break their dentures. So, and he's lost a canine just here, where he's got quite a locked occlusion. On the x-rays, he's got 4 implants. We've got ankylosing implants, which I've actually, in my experience, they are really good implants and tend to last, a good long time. Now, I'm not particularly keen on taking off old abutments, even if they're worn. I quite like just to keep things as they are, just in case, and just make some new dentures, which most of the time they work beautifully and they fit much better. Nice thing about Alisdair was he's got a hobby of building model railways, and not just model railways, award-winning railways. So he's built a whole town based on a little village in the south of Scotland, in Dumfries and Galloway, where he's just built it by scratch, and it's just beautifully made with little bits of, even with like weeds, and it's got a lived-in look, proper way. So, and it's very similar to how Rowan and I like to make our dentures. So we knew that we had a kindred spirit in Alisdair when we started treating him. Even like the kids that the children and things he's got mud on the knee there. It's just amazing. So here we go, back to Alisdair. We've got this, the fractured tooth there, and these are the dentures in place, really worn because they're just quite stable, with implants, and the patient can just grind away with them as chipping there on that locked occlusion. It's all been milled in over time, just with grinding. So not a very good fit. His previous dentist had made these many years ago, and then he'd been to another dentist who then made him a new set, and they just hadn't worked. So he's just back to these old ones there. So he's using quite a bit of fixative on there too. So just run through those. So these are the old, really worn dentures, not great shape at all to them. We can definitely make a big improvement on those. So this is in the mouth here, and so these are curators, which are just like locators, same size and shape. These top ones are quite worn because the denture's been moving and just gradually just wearing those down. The lower denture has not been as unstable, and it's just been more secure, so there's less wear on those. But we decided just to make him a set of new ones and just keep these in place, because even on doing them, sometimes I'm just worried about, particularly in the maxilla where the bone is so soft, whether we can actually lose an implant or not. And we just want to keep them if it's all possible. So there we can see those worn attachments on there. So once I've done my examination, I like to give the patient a treatment plan. So my treatment plan was just to make new upper and lower complete dentures on top of the locator abutments, but metal reinforced and correctly extended. So they're going to be really secure, stable, retentive, and also look a lot better, much more lifelike. And in these letters, I like to put in everything the patient needs to be aware of before they start. I like to plan out these cases too. You see a lot of my newsletters will have the actual amount the patient has paid, but some patients don't want to reveal that, and I respect Alisdair's not wanting to do that. It's absolutely fine. But what I love doing is just planning exactly how many visits it's going to be, what the length of time each appointment is going to be, and also what I want Rowan, my dental technician, to make here, so we can just plug all of those sorts of things. This sort of thing I think is really useful for cash flow and running the practice as a business there too. Generally, with complete dentures, it's just 5 visits per complete denture. If there's ever going to be sort of more visits than normal, it will generally be the try-in visit. Sometimes I'll be doing a few try-ins for patients, but in 80 to 90% of cases, I don't need to do more than 1 try-in if I've carved the wax rims really well. Let's go to visit 1 now. I love using these 2 different materials. We've got alginate here, which is dense ply blueprint, and in here I've got Kulza alginoplast that goes in the syringe. And this forms a lovely primary impression. I just inject that up into the sulcus, trying to get right the way around the tuberosities here. So I've got the full sulcus depth there. And these 2 materials just do that beautifully for me. I've preloaded a little bit into the of the alginoplast right up into the torus, into the palate area, vault of the palate. This is lower impression. It's very much according to Dr. Arbe's system, because I want to make the equivalent to a suction effective mandibular lower denture. So I use the frame cut back tray, the FCB tray, which is a Japanese product. And I want to just record the whole of the buccal and lingual shelves, the mylohyoid ridge, and the retromolar pad there, so I can get a really great special tray made. So let's fast forward to visit 2. Rowan produces me these 3 things. So we've got wax rims. These are for a primary jaw registration. Helps Rowan to articulate the working casts, and then that will help him to set up a Gothic arch tracer. And then we've got our custom trays here. The upper one is 3mm spaced. I'm going to put green stick on the fitting surface of that just to jack it open a little bit, and then I can board and mold the periphery beautifully with my impression materials there too. So that's the fitting surface there. Rowan gives us plenty of space, so I can put my pickups on there, the abutment pickups. So the lower one, I design the tray according to the Dr. Arbe extensions, covering the retromolar pad, slightly short of the buccal shelf here, and short of the depth of sulcus all the way around, so that's going to get molded. And then on the inside, we design it so it's just slightly over the mylohyoid line. If you want to see the full breakdown of that, just have a look at the denture construction manual, which is on my resources section. This is the lower tray. And whenever I've got a patient with implants, I don't want to compromise on my prosthodontic principles. I want to extend it fully, really beautifully. So this is right up and over the retromolar pad, ready for me to do the impression. Rowan constructs these wax rims as well. These are just for a primary jaw registration, which he'll use to mount the working casts to set up the Gothic arch. So I'll pop on my locator pickups onto the abutments, just like this. And then I pop some green stick on this tray here, avoiding those pickups there. Try that over into the mouth, and I push that down, just making sure it's lovely and square in the mouth. I also use this Occlu spray, which just is a powder. I can just spray on there and then pop that into the mouth. If it scrapes onto those abutments, those pickups there, then I adjust that back. So it's totally passive and the tray just sits beautifully onto the compound. I then put my adhesive on it for Imprigum, cover it all of the surfaces all the way around, and then mix up Imprigum and squirt a little bit around the abutments in the mouth and take that to the mouth. And then I do my border molding all the way around the edge and push it right down. So we're back down onto that green stick. And then I make sure that I don't take it out too quickly. So the border molding's pulling the cheeks gently, waggling the jaw, doing a suck on my thumb, and also having a yawn, pretending to yawn. That's another thing. And also blowing candles out. So it's all of these functional movements that the cheeks are going to be making. So we get all these lovely recorded areas and all the frenum fully on this, just like a polished surface. Also, the other thing I'm going to be doing here is to make a denture that's fully extended around the retromolar pads and also almost to the post-dam. I've not taken it quite back to the post-dam, the final denture, but it's much more of a complete denture than a horseshoe shape design. So the lower, I use it's close fitting, and I do my green stick border molding using the Arbe technique of licking the lip, pushing the tongue against the lower front strut, and then having a powerful swallow. So this is, I repeat all of those movements again. So I load that up with Imprigum. I'm going to take this to the mouth, and then I repeat all of those movements again. So it's licking the lip, brushing against the lower front teeth, powerful swallow. And I do that whilst holding the tray down firmly, with the patient almost biting together just with my fingers onto the occlusal surface of that. So once I've done that, then I think the definitive impressions is the most important visit of the whole lot. It really is. It's the foundations on which we're making things. The next part of visits, my definitive impressions, which we visit 2, I do a primary jaw registration, and I trim these rims here very quickly to the desired occlusal vertical dimension, just roughly looking at the patient, looking at Alisdair, making sure he looks right. Then I fix that together with Futard D. I'm not bothered about finding CR with this. I'm going to find CR with the Gothic arch tracing at the next visit. This helps Rowan to construct the Gothic arch tracer. So the impressions are poured, and then they're mounted using this rough jaw registration here onto the articulator. And Rowan trims off the border so it sits back onto the working cast, because the primary impressions have a much deeper sulcus. But he puts that on, that's why these are made of wax. And then on that, the Gothic arch tracer is made just like that. So let's go to visit 3 now. Generally, I've got 2-week intervals in between all of these sorts of things. It gives Rowan enough time to make everything. So this is a jaw registration. So there's 2 parts to my visit 3. I take an hour and a half with this. I trim the wax rim here using photographs the patient had brought in. So this is the tooth positioning and occlusal vertical dimension tool for prescribing that. And then this here is the central bearing apparatus, the Gothic arch tracer, which is used to record very accurately centric relation. In Britain, we call it retruded contact position. And so the Gothic arch tracer is made to fit onto the implant, so that clips onto the implants rather like the denture will do, and it keeps it lovely and secure. So the first part of visit 3 is carving the wax rims, and I do this using this formula here. So I carve the lip support first, then the incisal plane parallel to the interpupillary line, if that's going to be correct for that patient. Sometimes they have an occlusal cant, which we copy, but in this chap, Alisdair, we copied that. And then the occlusal plane parallel to the ala tragus, a very important aesthetic position. Trim the buccal corridors and then centre line on that. I don't put high smile lines on these sorts of things. And then trim the lower pivot, which sometimes it's called a Manchester block, this lower thing, Manchester rim, where you carve that to the correct occlusal vertical dimension. So, and this is the set order that I do that. And I like the patient to bring in dentate pictures with the lips together, and it helps me to generate the right lip support for the patient. So we can really look at that. I want to get them smiling at the same time. So this is Alisdair in his 40s, and then this is him. It's 80 just here, and it just gives me an idea of what's going to go on, what's going to look right. Also, this is the last photo he had him with his natural dentition at the age of 16. You can see lovely arrangement of those teeth there, and that helps me to just ideas on centre line, carving the rim, tooth positions, buccal corridors, vertical dimension too. I have to remember though, with age, the upper lip does lose its tone. It gets slightly thinner and slightly longer. So the relative incisal edge position here, I want to take it up a little bit there, so it's not going to show quite as much tooth. But different photos like this is him at the age of 16 with his teeth there, just shows the nasolabial angle, and I can just use that to carve that too, because everyone has a different nasolabial angle here. There's no standards. There's no standard rules to how much tooth they're going to be showing either. These rims have to be trimmed accordingly to that. So once I've trimmed it, I do a face bow. I put a bite fork onto the trimmed upper rim. You can see the center line on there. It's all trimmed. Goes into the mouth. The patient just bites together on that with the occlusal pivots at the bottom, just holds it in place. Claire pops this on, and I make this parallel to the occlusal plane that I want to have, so that Rowan has Alisdair's head on the bench there, and the marker there is lined up with the infraorbital notch. So we use the Danar system. I think any sort of face bow system will be superb. Any modern face bow system is excellent for this sort of thing. So that helps to position everything onto the articulator. So next, what I'm going to do is pop, because we've got the working casts here mounted using the pivots. We've already done that. We've got a working cast just there. Then we can now set the vertical dimension on this articulator just here, so that we can then set the vertical dimension correctly on the Gothic arch there, so that this Gothic arch is going to be at the same vertical as this. So when we pop it in the mouth, got the same vertical dimension for the patient. Now, sometimes I can't do this. I can't actually physically get the trimmed rims onto the model here and close it down. So in those cases, I don't panic. It's absolutely fine. What I do is I say to Rowan, look, this is going to be, the carved rims are going to be at the correct vertical for the patient, but the Gothic arch, please use that for mounting the working casts in CR, and then set the occlusal vertical dimension using the wax rims there like that. So let's go for it. I'm going to show you this. This is a foolproof way of recording the occlusion. It's absolutely fantastic. So we've got an upper plate fitted to our working cast, and a lower plate fitted to our lower working cast. And it's got a little pin here which we can screw up and down, so that we can change the vertical dimension with that if we need to. And then use a China graph mark on here like that. Heat that up, and then we can take that to the mouth and get Alisdair to carve this area here. So we pop that in, and then I get him to go forwards and back, side to side, and go anywhere on that in the mouth. You can see there's no contact at all, apart from between the pin and the upper plate. That's what it looks like. So he's gone forward and back, side to side, and then gone anywhere. He's coloured it in. And this is CR. And quite often the tapping point, the intercuspal position that used to be, is a little bit further forward in this area. So we've got to build in this zone of freedom, really, coming forward in balanced articulation to allow him to do that. But we always build the new teeth in CR and then give the patient a little bit of freedom coming forward. Anyway, I put a disc over that, hole in it like that. Take this to the mouth and then close together into that hole there. So that locks in. And then now I've got it properly recorded, CR, in 3 dimensions. So the patient can't turn the mandible at all or move. They're just locked into that CR position there. And I squirt in Futar D by registration material between the upper and lower rims there, and it locks it together beautifully and solidly there. It's really, really good there. And I find this so accurate that I just don't have any occlusal problems at all with complete dentures. The bite's always bang on. So this is what goes back to Rowan. We've got the working casts, which are going to be remounted using the face bow, this upper rim here, and the lower is going to be remounted using this Gothic arch. So the lower will be mounted to the upper, and then the vertical will be set from what we've got here. Also, notice we've got 2 different shades there of teeth. We've got A2 and A3.5, or A3, I think it is. I like to use darker canines on patients that want to have natural looking teeth. So this enables Rowan to mount up the working cast correctly using the face bow, and that's Gothic arch there and the rims, and then arrange the teeth according to the photos supplied. But what Rowan needs is he needs Alisdair's head on the bench in order to do this. It's fantastic. But look at that. He's got that smile there to work from, and this photograph here on his iPad. Rowan has it on the iPad, and then he can arrange the teeth accordingly. So these are the mounted cast, and that's the try-in there. And I can take this to the mouth now. So this is our desired extension just here. He didn't want it quite so far back to the vibrating line, but I've still compromised. So I've compromised slightly on that, but it's still much more like a complete denture. So should one of these implants fail, the denture is still going to be usable in the future. I think that's really important. And it's also maximizes that longevity on the lower denture, the dentures too, both of them, and of the implants. So this is what it looks like. Rowan loves shellac in these areas just to reinforce it. It's a really nice material for just reinforcing the try-in, which we take to the mouth like this. So in visit 4, we try this in. He checks this both smiling on photographs, as well as he looks at a video of himself too, just to make sure he's totally happy with that aesthetic. The teeth are not characterized at this point. These are A2, A3 posterior teeth. He wanted them to have a little bit of character later. He's quite happy with that post dam. I'm going to make sure I cut the post dam onto the working cast too. So that's a lower try-in there. So we then process the dentures. Now with these types of dentures that are implant supported dentures, we want to have them reinforced because patients can really bite on them. They're paying a lot of money, don't want them to break. So what we do is we make metal strengtheners. My technician, Chris Hesketh, who works in Chorley, just down the road, he makes these for us. And we've designed these specifically for implants so that where the locator attachment is within the denture, it's not going to get pushed out. And they're lovely and strong so that it's going to avoid cracking. Also, the other thing is for just making sure that we've got really good speech, then we put just like little bubbles on there, and this is going to be covered in acrylic, so which means that whole of the polished surface is going to be in acrylic and can be shaped up without any sort of ledges. It's still really, really strong. But it's crucial that I've done a try-in first before the metalwork's made, so that then the metalwork can be engineered to fit into where we want the teeth to go. No different than, planning implants. We want to just know what the shape of the denture is going to be first, and then make the metalwork to fit inside that. So this is a try-in embedded in silicone that Rowan's made here, just like this. And then the chrome framework Chris makes a chrome framework just to fit inside that. It's exactly the same with the lowers. It's got a T-shape cross section to it, really rigid. And then that's going to fit inside there just like that. So it's completely encased. And this is how Chris loves to make them. It's a lovely, strong system there on the working cast. And then Rowan will finish them and process them, flask and pack. The gum staining that is used on this denture it's called Secret Acrylic Tinting, and it's from the USA. The teeth themselves are made, they're Shotlander Enigma Life teeth, which are beautiful teeth, and just look, like natural teeth. Got a lovely translucency. We also do a little bit of characterization, so where we've got these little white cracks, the blades just cut into that surface of the tooth, and then a little bit of stain is just feeded in, and finishing in a crack just there like that. And they look really fantastic. Rowan likes to do the crack so it's not right in the middle, it's just offset as well, so it just makes them look more authentic too. So, and these have that, lovely, beautifully border molded, lovely shape to them. Rowan's processed these in the lab. How he does that is he finishes the denture by flasking and packing with space over the implants there. So pause there. So sorry about that. There's the postman. And so, yeah, Rowan makes the dentures, finishes them first without attaching them to the locator abutments. But once he's processed it, he cold cures them on the cast itself, rather like doing it in the mouth. And we found that really works beautifully. And since he's been doing that, I've not had to drill them out and cold cure them in the mouth themselves. So it really, really helps. So let's fast forward to visit 5 now, and fitting of the denture. I like to use the weakest possible attachments needed. And I use the locator, and I like to use the ones with the male attachments just in the center there rather than these here, if the patient's got decent oral hygiene, to keep the head of the implant clean. So, and this is the tool I use, the locator core tool, for doing that. In the upper, because those upper ones, if you remember, are really quite worn, I use these clear ones. These are the strongest ones. They had very little grip on the implant itself, but the suction on the denture itself with a nicely carved post stem and border molded periphery had brilliant suction. And so when Alisdair came back for review 1, he's just needed one review. He said, I don't want you to change those abutments. I want to just keep them. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. It's like type of scenario, and that's fine. So, because I'd be quite happy just to undo them and put some other ones on if needed. although it could potentially accelerate the failure of the implant. So I'm quite happy that they're left, really. In the lower, I've just used the weakest ones here. These have got, when the abutment is really in really good condition, like brand new, these have 500 grams of grip, whereas these have 1.5 kilos of grip if it's a brand new abutment. But obviously these are super worn. In the lower, slightly worn, and that fits just beautifully, really nicely. So that's it fitting in the mouth. Lower fitting, just like a complete denture. There's always a little bit of rock on these lower dentures when there's two implants at the front there. So it's just something that I think is really important to warn the patient about when doing these sorts of things. The other thing that I did when I fitted the dentures was he felt that the occlusion was just a little bit locked. So just when he was just biting together, it was nice and even, but just grinding around, it's very difficult to get balanced articulation on an articulator and replicate it in the mouth just by setting the teeth up and adjusting them on the artic. So when it goes in the mouth, the occlusion is always a little bit locked. So what I do with these cases, I mix up carborundum filings with toothpaste and then get the patient to grind around and do that for about 10 to 15 minutes, and then just rinse, spit out, and then renew it. So they're bruxing their dentures into place, and then just give them a little polish afterwards, and it just helps with that balanced articulation there really beautifully. And that's him all done and dusted. He came in for a review, just one review afterwards, and I just needed to adjust the flange slightly just down here at the bottom, just on the lower, and he was super happy. He said the suction on the upper is great, just like that. And it's just lovely just restoring someone's mouth. It's just, his lip support is better here than it used to be, much nicer, and just looks much more like he previously was. So with these there, and just having these photos to work from just is really, really fantastic, and it just helps Rowan to really be brave, go for it with the tooth positions, and he's really, really delighted. A lovely guy, and just mimicking his nasolabial angle there too. So thank you very much indeed for reading this newsletter. Cheers now. Bye.